Hey everybody, it's Luke at Young Writers, and I'm here today with the wonderful Angharad Walker. How are you doing?
Hi Luke, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So, if you've seen some of our videos before, I always start with this question. But for those of you who are, huge fans, and for people who have never come across you before, would you like to let us into your world just a little bit? Take that step in and tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Angharad and I'm a children's author. My first book, The Ash House, is out this September, probably out in shops as people are watching this, which is so exciting. It's meant to come out last year, so it's been a wait. So the excitement has just been building for a year. So I can't actually quite believe it's real and it's happening. And I even have a real copy. I now know it's real because I'm holding a real life copy in my hand. They can't take it back now. Yeah, so I've been writing for the last couple of years, and it's my first book, and it's going to be published by Chicken House. And before I was writing children's books full time, I was a copywriter. I did a lot of work for health charities and things like that. And I live here in South London with my partner and a lot of plants, one of whom you can see here. So that's basically me.
So what was the process in that? So you said that it was like meant to come out a year ago. How did that what happened with that? I mean, I assume what happened was the pandemic.
The
However,
pandemic happened, yeah, the destroyer of dreams for so many of us. No, it's been fine. But yeah, so we were scheduled for September 2020. A lot of people may know that when the virus first hit and there was so much chaos and a lot of book publication dates got moved. And as a result, the original autumn I was going to be publishing was really crowded, and I discussed it with Chicken House, and we said, you know what, let's try and move it back to this autumn when things are hopefully a bit more settled, a bit more normal, which, touch wood, they seem to be so far, just so that basically just to give everyone a chance, the book a chance to fall into everyone's hands, hopefully, and give readers a chance to get at it when they're not being bombarded by quite so many books as we had last autumn. It was a really busy one. Yeah, so that's what happened there. So it's been quite a year waiting for it, and publishing's very slow anyway, as I'm sure
yeah,
you know. So it's been a year on top of a year. So I'm very, very glad it's coming out now.
I can imagine that was like kind of horrible, actually. kind of having it
It was
ready
it
and,
was a
and
mixed
having it
bag.
there and kind of just waiting and sitting on it.
Yeah, it was kind of a mixed bag. Honestly, I actually count myself very, very lucky that my publishers were able and willing to move it. So many
Yeah,
people were not able to do that and had their books sort of pushed out at what wasn't a great time in the industry and indeed the world. So we're really very lucky, I think, to have had it moved. But yeah, I'm not a very patient person anyway. So for me to wait a bit longer was definitely, yeah, I had to dig deep. But it makes it more exciting that it's finally here. It's been something to look
definitely.
forward to throughout the last year, so that's been nice.
So before we take a step into the Ash House, I actually
Mm.
want to like go back to the very start of you growing up. So I read that you grew up younger in bases like army bases in the
Mm.
UK, in Cyprus, and in Germany, and I was wondering if that kind of shaped your kind of writing persona, your inspiration and where a lot of your ideas come from. Do you think that kind of paved a way somewhat into what you do now?
Yeah, God, what a great question. I'm sure it did, in as much as I think anyone's childhood shapes who they are. So I'm certain, I'm sure that it did have an influence on me becoming a writer. I think for my child, because we moved around so much, as a lot of people know, in the military communities, you tend to move every kind of 2 to 4 years. And as such, you don't really grow up with a hometown, and your neighbors are always changing. There's a lot of change. And I think for my family, and then bear in mind, both my parents come from army families too. So it's like a several generation thing. I think the thing that kept everyone together was stories. And I loved hearing my parents' stories, were the places they lived when they grew up, and then my grandparents too. So many of those bases are now gone and reused, and homes for different communities. So I think it's very much a storytelling culture. So it doesn't surprise me, I think, that I therefore gravitated towards that as I grew up.
Mhm. So we do now move on to the Ash House, which I have a wonderful copy of here.
Look at
Do
it,
you
so
wanna
shiny.
do you wanna kind of step into this world of the Ash House and tell us a little bit about the book itself?
Yeah, so it's a book for readers about 10 and up, and it's a little bit scary, it's very mysterious, and hopefully a really fun, action-packed adventure as well. And it's a story of our main character, Sol, who arrives at the Ash House, and Sol is dealing with these mysterious pains. He doesn't know how to stop them or what they are. And he's been sent to the Ash House because he thinks it's going to be a sort of healing refuge for boys like him, for children like him. And he gets there, and there are 30 other children living in the shadows of this huge house that's made entirely of ash and smoke. And there's no adults there. They've been left to their own devices for years. And we follow Sol's journey as he makes friends and learns the strange rules of the ash house. The children there seem slightly brainwashed to follow certain rules, and it's all about their nicenesses. And all the children are named after different virtues that they call nicenesses. So Sol's best friend is a boy called Freedom. We also meet Concord and Liberty and Love and Patience and a lot of other characters. And then the Doctor arrives, who may or may not be the answer to Sol's problems. Readers will have to read to find out. But yeah, that's what the story's about.
And I believe you have a short reading for us if you'd like to
do.
take it away and tell it. Yeah.
I will. So this is just a very short extract from chapter 2. I've skipped ahead a little bit. So this is when Sol has arrived at the Ash House. His new friend Freedom, who in the book is called Dom, has met him. And it's when they see the Ash House for the first time. And I really wanted to share this little bit. So here we go. Dom pushed his sodden fringe out of his eyes. He just wished that the sun was shining when the new boy saw the Ash House for the first time. The way the smoke eased off the building and smudged the sun. The way tiny grains of ash mixed with pollen in the summer and were whipped by the wind so that they settled in the children's hair and under their eyes. It wasn't so nice in the rain. Dom opened the gate and reminded himself that patience is a niceness. He led the new boy up the rest of the drive to the front of the ash house, stealing glances so he could see him catch the first glimpse of the soft, opaque walls, the towering chimneys, the glossy windows lined with black powder. He wanted to see his eyes widen and hear him catch his breath. Soon the gate and the drive were out of view, and nothing stood between them and the house. They stopped walking. Here it is, said Dom, the ash house. He admired the walls seeping into the air, the house's outline blurred and billowed as the wind scuffed it. Its smoke drifted over the glassy, rain-soaked grass, infusing the world with the smell of bonfires. Twin torches were staked in the ground outside the house, burning despite the rain. Dom put his hands on his hips and beamed. Isn't it brilliant? What's that burning smell? Asked the new boy. Come and touch it, Dom cried excitedly. He dragged him over the grass, ignoring the rain tapping on their shoulders. Dom could smell the walls as they got near. Wood, air, coal, and something fragrant, all caught together in the moment they're set alight. Look. Dom pressed his hand into the wall. It was warm, and Dom knew it would burn him if he pressed too hard for too long. He whispered the reverent words they used to show their thanks for the ash and the niceness of their names. Freedom is a niceness. He pressed his pale palm came away with a perfect dusting of grey powder. Now you do it too. The new boy held up a finger and stroked the wall gently. It came away smudged with the same grey. Okay, so it's a dirty house? It's not dirt, it's ash. The headmaster made it. But what was I thinking? Dom smacked his forehead, interrupting. We have to give you a name first. He set off towards the front doors. I already have a name, the new boy called after him. Well, what is it? Dom was turning the iron doorknob. He pondered the question and hiccuped, as if he was suppressing a gasp. He touched his forehead, leaving a dark smudge above one eye. I don't know. There we go.
I think that is a really, really good glimpse into what this book is about. And if that doesn't, quite frankly, intrigue you and hook you, then I'm not sure what will. So, my next question is that this seems to be a very thought out, intricate concept that is very original in its sense. Obviously, you can kind of see inspiration drawn from other stories, but this seems to be a very constructed thing that's come from somewhere. And I'd love to know a bit more about the inspiration for it and where you kind of grasped this idea from, because it's really interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, intricate is the word. It felt intricate when I was writing it. So I'm glad that comes across. Really, it started with the ash itself. I don't know if I daydreamed it. I don't know if I dreamed it in my sleep. It was a good sort of 8-9 years ago now. I know just one day this image of this huge house made of ash and smoke deep in the countryside where no one could see it came to my mind, and it wouldn't let me go. And it was one of those wonderful moments in writing, actually, where you just sit at your desk and sort of 2 pages just pour out without even trying. But I didn't really know. I knew some children lived there, but it took me a bit of time to figure out who they were and why they were there and what was keeping them there, and the rules of the ash house and the society that they live in there. And I've always been really drawn to genres like magical realism and fabulism, and I love those really rich extended metaphors that we see in books like A Monster Calls, or I'm a huge fan of Shirley Jackson, who's books for adults, this sort of wonderful psychological horror that feels it's magical and fascinating as well as scary at times. Um, so that's really the idea where it came from. And then it was when Dom and Sol, the story, it's their story really, and the chapters alternate between their point of views. As you just heard, that was a chapter from Dom's point of view. And really, when I thought of them, when those two boys really came into focus, and I knew it was a story of their friendship and their courage, that's kind of where it all came together. So very piecemeal, little bit by little bit, but that's writing sometimes. I think you gather things as you go along until you have a big enough pool of ideas that you can start to knit them together.
And I think this picture, the kind of the illustration on the front, if it's kind of seen on here, says a lot about the book itself. You know, it helps you vision the house and what the story is. But to me, this would, you know, it's very dark, it's very deep, and there's a really, as you say, you know, as we say, an intricate story behind it. Why is it a children's book? Because it seems,
Yeah.
no, I'm not 10, but this seems like a really, really fascinating idea that would translate so well into something kind of like Handmaid's Tale-y type thing, or Vox, or something of that aura. What led you into, you know, writing it as a children's book as opposed to a novel or an adult novel?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually, Luke, because honestly, it wasn't a straightforward decision. I did ponder, you know, there was a version of the book that I thought might be more for the YA market, and then obviously there are versions that could be for more of an adult market. I knew first off I wanted to write about children. That's really where it started for me. I really like writing young characters. I like the choices they have to make. And really, it's a story of, well, it's a story about a lot of things. One of the things it's about is about testimony and not really being believed. Some people don't believe in Sol's pain syndrome. Some elements of the Ash House, some people don't believe are real in the story. So this whole idea of what's real and what's not real is very crucial to the story. And anyone who gets to the end will know that that's a big part of it. And it just really intrigued me how sometimes people don't see children's versions of events as real or as reliable as perhaps an adult. So I knew for that reason that I wanted to write children as the main characters. As for making a book then for children who are readers, I really think it's a book I would have wanted to read when I was a child. I think I would have liked the intricacies of it and the scope of it. I don't like the idea of looking at an idea and thinking, oh no, that's too complicated, children won't understand it. They do, and they can. And that's one of my great pleasures of the book coming out so soon, is knowing that children are reading it and finding their own interpretations and enjoyment of it. So it's almost felt more ambitious actually to try and do it as a children's book. But it seems to have worked, so I'm glad I stuck by my guns on that one. I trusted my
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely wasn't saying that it doesn't work as a
Oh,
children's.
I know.
Because me, you know, as an adult, this is, I was chatting to Lindsay as well, my colleague, and she said it really fascinated her too. The idea, the concept. It's just, you know, I think you look at the cover of it, and it rings a lot of other things, you know, like the House for Peculiar Children and these like Neverweldy type things. And yeah, it was just something that kind of came to mind. And this is your first novel, so we kind of lead into what is next. Will there be like a follow-up, like an Ash House 2, or will you kind of go on something else, or what you're working on?
So there's no Ash House 2 in the pipeline just yet, but I never say never. I don't like to
Yeah.
say never about anything. So I don't know about that one, but I do have a new book coming out this time next year. Can't share the title or anything like that. But all I'll say is it's a whole new book, whole new world, whole new set of characters. It's maybe not quite as dark as the Ash House. It's a bit more of a sort of magical adventure type story. But I think if readers enjoy the Ash House, they're likely to enjoy this mystery second one too. I'm very, very excited about it. It's very nearly finished.
Fair enough. And lastly, if you could pass on, impart part of your wisdom onto kind of wannabe writers who might be watching this, what would one secret tip or trick that you could give them listening now to help them get where they want to be?
So many. One of the main pieces of advice I was always given, it's very true. Everyone tells you to read a lot if you want to be a writer. Now, that's very true, but I would also take that a step further and always tell young writers to read things you wouldn't normally read. So branch out into genres you've never read before, read books you might find difficult, read books, you know, if your friend's waving something at you and you're like, that's not for me. I like horror stories and that's a romance. Read the romance, read books outside your comfort zone, because you can always learn something new. And one of the fun things about being a writer is kind of taking your favorite bits from different genres and making it your own.
That's really interesting, actually. That's one that we've probably not heard before, but I completely agree with. I mean, I personally read quite a range, and you always pick up something or these like aspects from these other areas that you don't necessarily think. You never know what you're going to stumble into as well. I think my favorite book of all time is actually one that I didn't want to read to start with, and it was given to me by a friend, and she just went, just trust me, read it. And I went, it's not really my thing. And she went, just trust me, read it. And
what was the book?
Okay. It's Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet. I'll try and get my hands on it.
And it's I thought it was very not me, and it was just my friend saying, just take my word, just do it, just read it, just do it. And yeah, it's now my favorite book to this day. So very good advice that I would agree.
I know when I was younger, I felt like I could read like very serious, important books by boring people from history, and then sort of got a bit older and started reading a lot more widely and read fantasy and sci-fi, and I love graphic novels and watch a lot of TV. TV counts too, I think. And actually, yeah, so many of the best storytellers are working in those mediums. So yeah, they're very important to look at.
I think there'll be a lot of watchers out there glad to hear that TV counts.
And TV totally counts, guys. It very much counts. And movies, watch them all, and music, absorb it all.
Amazing. Well, the Ash House it's also out in the US as well. That's worth noting. So it will be out in the UK and the US. So that's really exciting. So it's available for everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us. And hopefully people will go along and buy it, because it's absolutely intriguing and fascinating and amazing. And yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Luke. This has been so much fun.
Of course. Thank you. See you later.
Bye.